The tier lists are back for a new season. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and today we are going to be ranking all of the forwards in FPL 2024-25 to see whether you should be putting them into your team or not. Let's get going. Okay, so the 5 categories I have put on screen for us today are must-haves, absolutely essential forwards that you need to put in your FPL team. We've got great picks, which are going to be some really nice options for you. We've got those solid picks that aren't quite amazing, but will definitely do the job. We've got wait and see, and these players, I'm not quite sure I would go for them at this moment, but between now and the Gameweek 1 deadline, I can definitely see some potential, just not willing to take that risk just yet. And finally, the avoids, players that I just straight up would not pick for Game Week 1, and there's very little that could change my mind on that. So let's get going, starting off with our first pick, and that is going to be Xerxes for Manchester United, and he is going to go in the avoid category. 11 goals in 34 appearances last season in Serie A for Bologna. That's kind of meh. I don't know. I'm not super impressed by that, and I feel like he might not even start over Højlund immediately for Manchester United. So this one is super risky, and I think most people will agree with me. The only people picking Xerxes right now are probably some very, very hyped up Manchester United fans, and that's absolutely fine, but don't expect too much from him. Next up is going to be Cunha, who I'm also going to put in the avoid category because of those poor fixtures that Wolves have at the start of the season. Yeah, it's not looking too good for the Wolverhampton Wanderers, so therefore Cunha, I don't think I'll be looking to go for him. There's definitely some better options and some cheaper options to go for as well in the forward position. We're going to keep it rolling, guys, with the avoids. Next avoid is going to be Julian Alvarez. Now, I know he did pretty well last season, but what we've seen consistently with Alvarez is that he only does well when either Haaland or De Bruyne are unavailable, because typically Alvarez is kind of a bench player, occasional minutes, maybe coming off the bench. But if Haaland is playing up front and De Bruyne is playing in the kind of attacking midfield positions alongside maybe Foden, there's not really a place for Alvarez to play in regular minutes. So Alvarez is great when someone's injured for Man City. Going into this new season, no one's injured yet. So if someone gets injured, then fine. But right now, Haaland, KDB, they're going to be the better picks right now for the Manchester City boys. And to be fair, Alvarez looks like he could be looking for a move away as well. So yeah, do not want to go anywhere near this pick. Another player who I probably don't want to go near is Nicholas Jackson, although I'm tempted to put him in the wait and see category. Now, I believe right now that there's a very good chance that Nkunku is going to be the main starting striker for Chelsea for the new season, and therefore Jackson is just not nailed from the information we know right now. But that said, if it does look like Jackson is going to continue to be the starting striker for Chelsea under Maresca, well, actually his numbers are pretty good, and he ended up last season doing really well. Really nice pick at the end of last season, and the fixtures are, they're okay. They're not great, but they're okay at least. So there's maybe some potential there, but I think we can move on to some players who I like a little bit more. And Adam Armstrong is definitely, for me, a solid pick at 5.5 million. Now, I do want to verify right now, guys, that I am judging players based on not just their ability to get points necessarily, but also their price. So, although Armstrong is probably not going to get as many goals this season as Cunha, for example, Armstrong is a whole million cheaper and has better fixtures to start off the season, which makes Armstrong a better FPL pick for the start of the season, at least in my opinion. And Armstrong did pretty well last season in the Championship. 21 goals, 13 assists. That's not bad at all. He's also the penalty taker for Southampton, and I think Southampton's fixtures are pretty decent to start the season off. He did struggle a little bit last time he was in the Premier League, which is why I'm not going to put him any higher than this, but I think he's a really solid, reliable, nailed on penalty taking pick with decent fixtures that will do the job for you at 5.5 million. You could do a lot worse at that kind of price tag. Next up, guys, this is a player who I'm going to put in the great pick category, and it is Chris Wood. Now, you may have noticed, guys, that I am putting these players in order of popularity. We've started with the least popular players, and we're moving up towards the more popular players in FPL that a lot of people are already picking. And already you can see that Wood, therefore, is one of the least picked forwards in this tier list video, and I think he is a really great pick. Now, his numbers last year were insane. 0.58 expected goals per 90 last season. That was the 4th best of any forward in the Premier League, so really, really good there. His actual goal numbers were even better. 0.7 goals per 90. That's the 3rd best in the Premier League, and actually only behind the likes of Erling Haaland and Alexander Isak as well. So he's at that kind of level of, you know, scoring goals, being clinical with his shooting, which is really, really good. He is a potential penalty taker. I know people will say that Morgan Gibbs-White is Nottingham Forest's penalty taker, but we've never actually seen Gibbs-White take a penalty with Wood on the pitch. And Wood has a phenomenal and long-lasting penalty record. He scored a whole bunch of them, and it's a really good record as well. So maybe Wood is going to be on penalties. It remains to be seen. Never had a penalty for Forest whilst he's been on the pitch. I don't know. But guys, there is a small rotation risk. Now, Awani has missed the start of the preseason, but I think Awani could maybe come in and get some minutes from Wood. But going off the back of last season and the preseason so far, it looks like Wood is still going to be the main man. He was in such good form coming off the back of last season. It will be really harsh to drop him right now. So I think at 6 million, that is incredible value for money. I think he's a fantastic pick at that price point. You know, there's going to be other players that outscore him, but at that kind of price, I don't think there's going to be very many in any position in FPL this season. Now, it's time for another avoid, and that is going to be Fraser. I'm so sorry, Fraser. I'm sure you have a fantastic career ahead of you, but he seems to be the most popular 4.5 million forward at the moment. I think a lot of people just looking to bring him into their teams and bench him, and usually that would be fine if not for price changes in FPL. Now, if a lot of people decide, okay, I've got a 4.5 million forward on my bench, but I actually now want to play with 3 forwards. I want to play with a 3-forward formation, then suddenly everyone is going to sell Fraser, and Fraser is going to drop down in price and could go to 4.4 million and then 4.3 million. And we see this every year with the most popular kind of cheap player, you know, basement level priced player in their position. We see that every year in FPL after game week 1 because people just sell them and no one's buying them in. So therefore, yeah, it's not always a good thing. So I know he's not really meant to get you points if you are putting him in your FPL team, but he actually could do damage in terms of reducing your team value, and that's not going to be a good thing. So Fraser, I'm so sorry, man. I don't know too much about you as a football player other than you play for Wolves and you cost 4.5 million in FPL. I wish you the best, but you're not the one for our FPL teams, and it's not even your fault. I'm sorry. Anyway, guys, I probably should say at this point, if you do enjoy these tier list videos, let me know, leave a like, and do subscribe, and we can do the other positions as well. If you want to see midfielders, defenders, and goalkeeper tier lists as well, yeah, let me know, and we will do that next. Anyway, back to the tier list, guys, and then we've got another really nice pick ahead of us, and that's going to be Muniz, who I'm also going to put in the great pick category here. 9 goals last season. They were pretty much all in the second half of the season. He looked really, really strong in that second half of the season. At 0.49 expected goals per 90. I think that's around 11th best in the Premier League among those forwards. Good fixtures, really good fixtures. Manchester United, the opening fixture, which going off last season is not such a bad fixture at all. But then we've got 2 back-to-back newly promoted teams, Leicester, then Ipswich, and then West Ham after that. So Fulham, really nice fixtures. Muniz, a player who has already shown bags of potential. He's not a penalty taker, so can we potentially drop him down into solid? I mean, potentially, I do think he is a good pick, though. I really do like the Muniz shout. So I am going to leave him in there. Definitely going to kind of compete with Wood as that best 6 million forward. And I think Muniz arguably might even be a safer pick. I think Wood has more potential, but Muniz maybe a little bit safer. And those nice fixtures are definitely going to turn some heads. Right, moving on. Another Manchester United guy. It's going to be Højlund, and he's probably going to be a wait and see for me. A minute's risk with Xerxes kind of coming into the team. Who's going to be the main starting striker for Manchester United? Probably going to be Højlund at the start, but both of these players showing bags of potential. So it's going to be very difficult to call who is going to get the most minutes. So they're probably going to damage each other's minutes a little bit, which kind of, yeah, means neither of them are going to be amazing FPL picks if we're trying to be a little bit safe and a little bit sensible. He did have a decent spell last season. Actually, I believe he finished the last season on around 10 goals, which is actually not too bad all in all. Definitely a player of potential, but I don't know if he's worth the risk for Game Week 1. Wait and see on that one. And we'll move on to Jamie Vardy next. I know a lot of people will be looking for a Jamie Vardy party, probably mostly for nostalgia purposes. I mean, he's a great nostalgia pick in FPL, don't get me wrong, but we have a serious minutes risk here. I only started 18 games last season and then made a further 17 substitute appearances for Leicester. So he is kind of playing a lot of minutes for Leicester, but I don't know. As a new manager, it's very, very difficult to kind of say at Leicester who is going to be the main starting striker. I mean, Vardy, 37 years old now. He's not getting any younger. The intensity of the Premier League, that's not to say the Championship wasn't an intense league, but he wasn't able to play that regular minutes even in the Championship. So, yeah, I don't think this is worth the risk. Leicester have pretty average fixtures anyway, so not really feeling this one. Sorry, guys, there's just better 6 million and 5.5 million players to go for. Adam Armstrong would be my newly promoted 5.5 million forward of choice. Next up, Darwin Nunez. Wait and see, probably a wait and see. 0.71 XG per 90 last season, which is the third best in the Premier League. Really, really good. He is obviously an XG underperformer, so he's not going to score as many goals as maybe a more clinical striker would, given the same opportunities. But he may benefit from the new bonus point system because he takes a lot of shots on target, actually. He is a minutes risk, and we're not quite sure how Liverpool are going to line up. And for that reason, I'm going to put Darwin in the wait and see category, because is it going to be Gakpo playing as a central striker? Maybe it could be Jota playing there. Difficult to say. But speaking of Gakpo, similar situation. For me, it's a wait and see. So between now and the Game Week 1 deadline, I think we need to do a little bit of learning and kind of find out if it looks like either of these guys are likely to start in Game Week 1 and beyond. Because remember, even if we can get a Darwin or a Gakpo and we get these players and they start in Game Week 1, that doesn't necessarily mean they're also going to play in Game Week 2. And ultimately, with a new manager, there might be a bit of experimenting between Darwin, Gakpo, Diaz, Jota to work out who his best 11 really is in the Premier League. So it's always going to be risky at the start of the season with these Liverpool guys. And I know some people, and I've already kind of seen in the YouTube comments, on social media, a lot of people are very hot on the likes of Gakpo this season. And that's absolutely fine. If you are willing to take that risk, then that's fine. But for me, I would not feel good about advising you guys to take a player who does come with what I see as a lot of risk. So if you disagree with that, go for it. I cannot back it myself, unfortunately. Otherwise, if it goes wrong with Gakpo or Darwin, I'm going to have a lot of pitchforks at my front door, and that's not really something I would like to see. Right, next up, Mateta, avoid. Well, probably an avoid. Okay, I'm being harsh. Wait and see for Mateta, probably an avoid. Obviously, Mateta finished last season really well, and Palace had some great fixtures. And at 7.5 million, I think it's an okay price for him. It's not bad. The problem is, Mateta is currently playing at the Olympic Games for France. And the Olympic Games football final for the men's football is 1 week before the Premier League starts. So if France make it all the way to the Olympics final for their football team, then Mateta is probably going to have a little bit of a break at the start of the season. And France have a stacked squad for the Euros. They already absolutely dominated so far in the tournament. I think they probably will go all the way and win it. And therefore, yeah, Mateta, he's probably not going to be playing too many minutes at the start of the Premier League season. It's probably going to be Odsonne Edouard leading the line for Crystal Palace. So, yeah, wait and see. But realistically, yeah, Mateta is just not going to be an option for us. Solanke is definitely a solid player, reliable guy. I'm going to put him around here. He's a minutes man, of course, 19 goals last season, penalty taker. The fixtures are kind of average, but I think he is just such a reliable guy. He's going to play so many minutes that he'll probably make up for that. So a solid squad option, definitely a player you can put in your fantasy team, but probably not going to be a star player in your team at the beginning of the season where those fixtures aren't amazing necessarily. Right, Tony up next, similar situation. He is, again, pretty reliable. Average season last season, poor fixtures to start off. Obviously, Brentford here play Liverpool and Man City in the first four. But yeah, like I say, he's generally reliable, penalty taker, and he is definitely worth considering, even if he doesn't get a transfer. The latest rumours say that he could be joining Spurs, and if he does, well, he's going to be a really nice pick. And if he does move to Spurs, to get a Spurs one of the best attacks in the Premier League, striker for 7.5 million with all of the chances that Spurs create, then that would be amazing. But I don't want to speculate on transfers too much right now. He's already at least a solid, but could easily move into great pick if he moves to a team with better fixtures, I suppose. Next up, Kai Havertz, definitely solid. Definitely at least solid. Some people would even argue that he's a great pick, but I'm not going to put him any higher than this, because even though he did really well at the end of last season, his stats, his underlying numbers weren't quite as good as some of the other forwards on this tier list. So therefore, Arsenal, nice fixtures. He should be reasonably nailed on. I think Havertz plays most games and in the number 9 position. The fixtures, even against Villa and Spurs, if you're an attacker, those are pretty decent fixtures as well. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I know a lot of people without Saka might try and compensate with Havertz, and I think that's fine. Like I say, I think he's solid, but he's not quite like an elite level FPL pick. Like I say, with the likes of Wood and Muniz, I think Havertz will probably outscore Wood and Muniz, but Wood and Muniz come in at 2 million cheaper, and that's why Havertz is going to be slightly below them on this tier list. It's all about the prices and the fixtures, as well as the ability and quality of the player. We've got another wait and see on our hands, a real troublesome wait and see, because João Pedro, last season, really, really good. 0.53 XG per 90. That's the joint 7th. That's actually the same as Solanke for 2 million cheaper. Another penalty taker, but he missed the tour to Japan. So Brighton have gone on a club tour in Japan for the pre-season. João Pedro has been left at home. Apparently there is a minor injury there, but I am still trying to get to the bottom of what exactly that injury is and whether it will rule him out for the start of the season. So there is a little bit of risk involved with João Pedro, and I think we need to monitor this one to find out exactly what the situation is. If not, for 5.5 million, that is game-breakingly cheap for the Brazilian. Moving on. We got the big man. Got to put him straight in great pick. And I'm not going to put him in must-have. Last season, I probably would have put him in must-have, but the price hike to 15 million, as well as big price increases for many other players for this season's FPL, kind of mean that having Haaland can damage the rest of your team. But that said, he is still a phenomenal pick. He is going to be a captain option every week for you. 1.04 XG per 90 last season. That is miles ahead of anyone else. His total XG last season was actually higher than in his first season when he broke the goal scoring record. So no reason he can't do that again if he can maintain his fitness throughout the whole season. He's had the summer off. I think Haaland is a phenomenal pick, and I don't think anyone will doubt that. It's just a case of whether he is worth spending the 15 million. Interestingly, a little side note here, the bookies are predicting 27 goals from Haaland this season. That's what they reckon will score, around 27 goals. And that's actually 9 more goals than any other player in the Premier League. Obviously, some other players will probably score 20 goals, but Haaland is predicted 27. The next best is predicted around 18. So big drop-off between the highest predicted scorer, Haaland, and the second best. That is just goals, though, remember. And obviously, midfielders get more points for goals. So that's not everything. It's just a nice little side note. Next up, we're finally going to put a player in the must-have category. It's going to be Alexander Isak, 0.8 XG per 90. That's the second best in the Premier League, only behind Haaland. He is a penalty taker again. Seems to have nailed himself on in this Newcastle team. He is a phenomenal player with some good fixtures to start off the season, and he only cost 8.5 million for literally someone who is kind of second best to Haaland with those numbers, with those statistics, with what he is producing per start. And that is important because he didn't start every game last season. If we can get a regular run of games from Isak, and given that he is currently injury-free, we will be able to get that, then he's just an insanely good pick. And there is a reason why you rarely see a draft from anyone who talks about FPL. Rarely you will see people without Isak in their team. He is a must-have. He is essential for me, and there is no way around that. And that brings us to our final player, who is Ollie Watkins. And you're probably expecting me to put him about here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put him in the great pick category. Now, don't get me wrong. Watkins is a great pick. He is a phenomenal pick, and that's why he is third on this tier list, only behind Isak and Haaland. He is really, really good, and he got a whole bunch of points last season. He's actually, he's really improved his finishing as well, which has been great to see. 19 goals in the end last season, which is amazing. But the problem is his 18 assists came from a expected assists of just 4. So he actually got quite lucky last season with the assists that he was getting. Like, that is a huge overperformance that is very difficult to replicate in the future. So I just want to make you guys aware of that. Don't expect Watkins to have the same kind of season as he did last year in terms of points, but he can still do really, really well. And 9 million is a good price tag for him. That is a good value for money that you're going to get from Watkins. But ultimately, the likes of Isak and Haaland, with, Haaland's captain ability, Isak's value for money, I think just put them slightly higher than Watkins. So for me, guys, the top forwards are Isak, Haaland, and Watkins, followed by Wood and Muniz when we consider value for money. Those are my favorite guys. Let me know what you think about this tier list. Do you agree with the positions of the players on this tier list? Is there anyone you would move around? Do you think we could bump anyone up to great pick? Do you think maybe someone is too high on this list? Maybe they're a complete avoid to you. Let me know. Always good to get your feedback. But before you go, make sure you drop a like. Do subscribe if you are new around here, and let me know if you'd like to see more tier list videos. We'll be back for another video tomorrow, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.